everyone, I'm Yuxing. It's my honor to be here. First of all, I would like to say thank you to everyone who is coming today, and thanks to the Royal Photography Society for giving me the IPE award of this year's International Photography Exhibition. I'm feeling so pleased that the pagoda can be seen by more audiences. So today I'm going to talk about my photography practice through the award project, the Oriental, including my inspirations and my archive research. The Oriental scene includes 3 different images groups: the still life of the old Western-made Chinese-style objects, archive images, and the redoubt photograph of the Western-made Chinese architecture. So first of all, I would like to introduce myself a bit. So I'm originally from China. I did my BA course in visual communication in China and graduated with a master course in photojournalism and documentary photography at the London College of Communication in 2022. I was a journalist and a producer living in Shanghai before, and I'm living in London now as a visual artist. The Oriental scene is also a project I made during my MA course, and this project is still ongoing. This is a picture I took on my flight from Shanghai to London in 19 September 2021. At that moment, I was feeling stressed and anxious because at that time, we're still going through the pandemic. I feel a great sense of uncertainty and fragmentation. I come to the UK because of uni, and it was the first time I lived alone in a Western country for more than 1 year. Forgive me for using the binary approach here to differentiate the West and the East. In the project, East and West are used to identify geographic distance, implicitly recognizing the dynamic differences in environments and experiences. So I've been living in London now since September 2021, and everything around me had to be observed and experienced with a new eye. I intend to try find some familiar things that can slow down my feelings of insecurity in a new environment. But before I come to the UK, I've already heard about the flavors of the American sweet chicken or the fortune cookie. So both of these like the authentic Chinese food. So actually I haven't heard much hope for seeking the authentic Chinese food in the UK. So I may already know that the food and the Chinese representations has been localized here. So when I went to Soho, even though I was in the Chinatown, it was a spectacle for me, and I still feeling I'm a stranger living in a foreign land. So the subject of the differences led me to find the pagoda at Kew. But by a chance, one day, I come across Instagram photos of the pagoda at Kew. I was fascinated by the pagoda. It looks like a one I had seen in China before, but it's a bit strange. This feeling of alienation led me to start this project. So before I show the images of the Kew's pagoda, I want to ask the people who are sitting here, how many people been to Kew Garden before? Oh, that's a lot. Most of people going to pagoda, the Kew before. And how many guys knows there's a pagoda in the Kew Garden? Okay. And how many people knows that the Kew Gardens pagoda has a fundamental mistake of the rules of the Chinese architectural tradition? Oh,
Well, you've caught us out.
Okay. That's funny. So I'm going to talk through about this mistake. So I took this picture when I went to Kew for the first time, and I was completely surprised by the pagoda because I realized it was a special Western taste. So I'm going to talk about what's a mistake about Kew's pagoda. It's a number of the story it has. Following the Chinese Han Buddhism tradition, the pagoda must have the old number of the story, but the pagoda at Kew Gardens have 10 stories, which is the even number. But I'm obviously not here to talk about to promote the Chinese culture or the Chinese architecture. Instead, I want to show a very interesting story about how the images progressively misleading the architect who designed the Q's pagoda. And also I want to share the history of the photography and the exciting chain of the images transmission that's linked behind this architecture. So Kew Gardens Pagoda replicates the Posan Tower in Dabaon Temple in Nanjing, China. This pagoda was built in early 15th centuries. The Posan Tower of Nanjing is the first illustrated and documented by John Neuhoff of the Dutch East Indian Mission in the West. He published a catalogue of his travels through China in 1665 and illustrated the Posan Tower of Nanjing. His illustration of the Nanjing Posan Tower has reprint and reprint again and again, so there were many different versions on the market. And this slide shows the 9 stories of Posan Tower, so we can account. This is 9 stories of the Posan Tower. And the Posan Tower of these engravings is located in the middle of the Nanjing Dabaon Temple. So I'm going to show another version of the Posan Tower's engraving. This is another version of the engravings of the Posan Tower of Nanjing, and it was the most popular one in Europe during that time. So we can account the story of the Posan Tower on this print, which is 10 stories. So the original Nanjing Posan Tower has been burned out by Taiping Army in 1856, before photography becoming widely used in China. So no images and no photos of the Posan Tower can be used as a reference. So we can only imagine what the tower looked like through these buildings, through these drawings and engravings. So without the help of the photography, the truth might be more difficult to capture. During the 16th and 17th centuries in Europe, there were limited reliable information about Chinese pagodas, and this mystery from the East increasing people's wonder and desire. Photography haven't invented yet. Text and illustrations were used as authentic archive tools. The architect who built the Q's pagoda, William Chambers, never visited Nanjing to see the real Posan towers look like. We can guess probably it is possible he saw the most famous print of the 10 stories of the Posan Tower, so he designed the wrong number of the stories of the Q's pagoda in 1762. So these 2 images and this chain of the images prove that the images can very easily transform in transmission process and indicate a built relationship between the truth and the fiction. And this is a print depicts the landscape outside the city of Nanjing, and we can see very large numbers of pagodas standing not far away in the city. This print and engravings are very different from the traditional Chinese painting in terms of their perspectives. John Thompson was one of the first Western photographers to travel to the Far East, documenting the people, landscape, and artifacts of the Eastern cultures. When he traveled to Nanjing in 1871, he wanted to find Nanjing Posan Tower, but what awaited him is the ruins of the Nanjing Posan Tower. So he took the photo of the dowdies and the ruins of the top of the Nanjing Tower. This is perhaps the only photo left of the Posan Tower that can be verified. Wu Hong mentioned this story in his book, A Story of Rooms, Passing and Absence in Chinese and Visual Culture. Many years later, Western photographers who come to China in their early photographs of the country, they couldn't help but turn their lenses to the grand architecture. Felix Beato focused on the Liurong Temple in Guangzhou. Some of his photographs show the pagoda in Buddhist temple from different angles and distances. This pagoda resembles like the Posan Tower of Nanjing, reflecting the West's lasting fascination with the East. These photographs suggest how the colonial power relied on the media and documentary photography to view the East. So, from the point of view, photography and the transmission of the images, that's why the pagoda is so important in the Oriental scene. So, I started with engravings and did a lot of archive research, from private antique shop to public archive and museum. I found lots of related objects. Here is a stamp from the Kew Gardens on its 115th anniversary, and we can see that the third stamp from the left has the Kew's pagoda in the background. This is one of my collection of the postcard from the Kew Gardens pagoda. And I'm sure everyone here is no stranger to this blue and white ceramic plate like this, and perhaps everyone's home has them. This blue and white ceramic called blue willow plate became popular in England at the end of 18th century. Blue willow is categorized as a chinoiserie design, as it draws inspiration from Chinese art and culture, but it is crafted specifically for the European audiences. We can notice the pattern on the willow plate consists with several elements: buildings, bridge, trees, figures, and floral elements set in the waterside location and surrounded by the decorative border. They were based on the original Chinese design, usually described as Yuxing. The willow plate and the Kew Gardens are both the products of the chinoiserie trend. In the second half of the 17th century, European fashion was crazy for the Oriental design and all things Chinese, and the trends developed the chinoiserie and spread through Europe during the Baroque and Rococo period in the 18th centuries, influencing the architecture, painting, furniture design, and interior decoration. While I'm collecting the objects, because of decorative art is one of the materials that people can have used throughout the history to structure their worldviews. As such, objects themselves can show how individually form the meanings in their environment, and the precisions of the styles and patterns across a range of objects can reveal the values of the cultures that created and used them. The Oriental as a decoration also flows and evolves in their practical process. That's why I included still life images in my project. This is a black and white willow plate with a pagoda painting I got at a flea market from US. This is also a willow plate from my collection, and we can see the pagoda on the plate along with another Chinese buildings and flowers. Here's some very interesting photos I found while I'm doing the archive research from the royal collection. We can see a huge pagoda decoration behind the Princess Margaret. The description of the royal collection shows that the font had become familiar in Europe through drawing and prints. The pagoda became two essential elements of the 18th century fashion and chinoiserie. George IV was no doubt aware of these forms, but he may have been the first person to order the models of the porcelain. He built the pagoda. He put these pagoda models at the Royal Pavilion at Brighton. This is a fragment plain coat, a copter plate print in red and white with chinoiserie scenes from the Vienna collection. We can see that the pagoda is in the background. This is a furnishing fabric with Kew Garden scenes from the Vienna collection as well. This is a Chinese takeaway box. So probably everybody know that because we are familiar with the Chinese takeaway box, which is also appear on the emoji in our phone. And the porcelain tower of Nanjing is also inspired this red pagoda paintings as well. And this is a stereographic card of pagoda in the center of the China Pavilion at the Philadelphia International Exhibition. At the end of the 19th century, many middle-class families began to collect the stereographs. People purchased stereographs to document the tourist attractions they're traveling to, or exotic places that could only be experienced through the stereoscopes. The popularity of buying these stereoscopes has been played a very important role in spreading the exotic landscapes is reinforcing the viewer visual fascination with the Oriental scene. So I was floored by the chain of the images and the information hidden under the pagoda at the Kew Gardens in the Oriental scene. So I did a lot of research before I actually start photographing Western-made Chinese-style buildings in the UK. I also tried to figure out my relationship with these subjects because obviously we share the kind of Chineseness, but these Western-built buildings are alien and exotic to me as well. Part of what I read when I was working on this project, I would say summarize a very interesting relationship between East and the West in a very short paragraph. The West is the will, and the East is the representation. The point to be conveyed through this textual analysis is that the East is a geographical space and object of replication constructed by the West, and it's transformed from geographical space into a colonial space. And that knowledge not only served power, but inherently part of this. In the process of my project, I have visited total 15 Chinese-style buildings in England, located in the royal and upper classes estate and public space. The challenge I face and creative process is concerned with using photography, a visual language of Western origin, to capture the picture of the East constructed by the Westerners. In contrast to the history, the role of the subject being observed under the lens has been shifted. In choosing to reproduce images in Western-inspired way, I was concerned that it would be somehow reinforcing the Western cultural gaze towards the East implemented in these buildings. Then I began experimenting with redacting the subject from the photographs, leaving a space to exploring Western and Eastern cultural gaze and the power. This is Kew Gardens Pagoda. Now we can play a gazing game because there's no single photos of the left of the Porcelain Tower of Nanjing. So we have no idea what the colors tower should have been. So we can imagine what the color of the Nanjing Porcelain Tower would be in your mind. Okay, think about this. So I'm now showing the fragment of the Nanjing Porcelain Tower in British Museum. I'm sure you more or less guess in your mind of what color of the Porcelain Tower might be. So it might be blue, white, red, white or red, or like as some drawings shows. But if you ask me what the color looks like, but actually I don't know. So this is Kew's pagoda from a distance. This is a Chinese pagoda at Victoria Park. This Chinese pagoda is located in the southwest side of Victoria Park. The original site was in Hyde Park. This is a 3-story Chinese pagoda located in the Alton Tower roller coaster theme park in Stockholm, Chen. When I found it, I discovered that the pagoda was actually a fountain, and the water was touching and spilling out of top of the pagoda. This pagoda is located in the center of this roller coaster theme park, where there's well-tended garden, but it's very quiet in the distance. You can only hear the screaming that happens when the people sit in the roller coaster. This is in the Biddulph Grange Garden, an estate that not only had the Chinese gardens, but only had the Egyptian pyramids. This is the Chinese tea house in Sugarburn Estate. This is a building that would be more interesting because this Chinese building is located in the park in Scarborough, which is a Chinese themed park, but built according to the pattern on the willow plate. So this park is a reconstruction of the Eastern imagination and the willow plate. It's a duplication within a duplication. It's a reproduction within a representation. This is a Chinese house in Wales Park. This house is used for the afternoon tea, as the Chinese house in Sugarburn as well. This is the Chinese construction in Scarborough as well. This is the first Chinoiserie tea house on the Stowe estate in the UK. This is a Chinese building in the middle of the water in the Scarborough Chinese theme park. This building is not considered strictly produced in the Chinoiserie period. It is located in the Leicesters. So Chinese architecture decorated the gardens of the nobility and upper classes and filled them with exotic flavors. Whenever in the 17th centuries or today, the Oriental has seen by the Westerners, it very much depends on the Western cuisine. Linguistic differences continue to be the one of the reasons for differences in mutual understanding. In this project, Chinese architecture provides me with the opportunity to think about this architectural symbol as a presentation of the East culture. This enabled me to develop a deeper understanding of the implicit knowledge production involved in shaping the others in Western cultural narratives. The discussion also provides an insight into a Western-centered bias in British Chinese architecture, where Eastern culture is interrogated on all levels. The bias and imprecision evident in the architecture have long-lasting effects, and they are a constructive reflection on the long absence of the Eastern voices from these narratives. So by actively choosing erase the subject, I have also raised my confusion as a photographer from the East. I also attempt to revisit those parts have been ignored or forgotten and to review the differences under the imperial gaze. So I think that's pretty much for today, and thank you very much for listening the story about the pagoda and my research. So here's my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me for any possible collaboration and opportunities. Thank you.